Hi everyone, I'm Kelly Wilhite and I want to help you learn about how to make healthier selections when it comes to processed foods. Now this was a three-part series. In this final part three video, I want to go over a review of the ingredients. Now in part one, I covered packaging lingo. In part two, I covered the nutrition label. So now we'll talk about ingredients. This is the most important of them all because if there are ingredients in an item that you want to avoid, there's no need to look any further. We know that having a dietary plan from nutrient-rich whole foods made from home, when you have complete control over the ingredients and cooking methods, is always best. Even most restaurants' foods would not qualify as healthy just because it may seem like restaurant dishes are being made from scratch. It is not fully the case. I fully realize that everything made from home 100% of the time is not realistic. So start with some small goals. And if you can get to the point where 80% of what you eat is wholesome, quality sourced from whole ingredients, that would be great. Okay, so let's get to talking about ingredients in packaged foods. Processed food ingredients can be difficult to interpret. We're not meant to actually to eat a diet of processed foods, so it isn't meant to be easy. And what's important to keep in mind is that for most processed foods, the focus is on convenience, taste, appearance, and texture, not on contributing to good health. Producers and manufacturers are becoming more cunning and even deceitful in disguising unhealthy ingredients with special names. And the amount of unhealthy chemicals, additives, and colorings being added has really gotten out of hand. There's a lot to cover when it comes to ingredients, and we won't have time to go through it all. However, this will give you some great information to start. If you have questions, reach out to me as I'd love to help you be more informed. I touched on this somewhat in my first video that choosing whole grains over refined can be better, but don't be fooled in assuming because a processed food contains whole grains that it is a health food. As it relates to plant-based proteins, many of them are fine. One of the worst, though, and a very popular ingredient in so-called healthy snacks and bars is soy-based protein, like soy isolate. This is a poor choice, especially the non-organic kind. Even when organic, though, be careful not to overload, as even too much organic soy can be unhealthy. When it comes to animal protein powders and processed foods, there's some that can be very healthy, and those are collagen and whey. If the collagen and whey are pasture-raised, grass-fed, they can be great choices. There's some forms of whey that are much better than others, but we won't have time to get into all that. But many have a sensitivity to whey and don't even realize it. So beware unless you're sure. So let's talk about fats and oils. As you may be aware, some processed foods now have coconut or avocado oil instead of unhealthy vegetable oils, and those are definitely healthier alternatives. However, most fats and oils in processed foods are very unhealthy. Examples of those are, I'm going to give you a big long list here: shortening, canola oil, corn oil, soybean oil, safflower oil, sunflower oil, cottonseed oil, peanut oil, hydrogenated or partially hydrogenated oils, and fractionated oil. Though vegetable oils are promoted as healthier for the heart, there's more to it, and the downsides for these vegetable oils far outweigh any upsides. Another thing to look out for are peanut-based additives. Peanuts are not only grown with some of the heaviest amounts of pesticides, they also contain mold. So when it comes to peanuts or peanut byproducts, whether it's peanut flour, peanut oil, peanut butter, peanuts, organic is always going to be the best choice. Organic doesn't take away the mold, but when peanuts or any byproduct are eaten in moderation, if one doesn't have any certain health conditions, it can be okay. Speaking of peanuts, let's look at this peanut butter. Actually, this particular peanut butter, the ingredient label says butter spread. Listen, it's not even peanut butter. It's peanut butter spread, which contains peanuts, sugar. Why do we need sugar in peanut butter? Palm oil. Why do we need extra oil in peanut butter? And 2% or less of salt, molasses, honey. We don't need any of that in peanut butter. It's craziness. We just want the peanuts made into a nut butter. And there are many organic peanut butters out there that have nothing but the peanuts and or some salt in it. So on to a big topic, and that's added sugars and types of sweeteners. We can do an entire video on this. I'm going to go through a good amount of items that are unhealthier choices, so you may want to take notes. I mean, for instance, this particular cereal has 14 grams of sugar. Okay, it's supposed to be lightly sweetened, and it has 14 grams of sugar. Majority of that is all added sugars, from brown sugar syrup, which is one of the ones that I'm going to mention is not a healthy choice, corn syrup, another really bad choice, and some other items, along with artificial flavors and dyes and things like that. Another craziness. So you would be surprised at how sugar is hidden in processed foods. It's not just in sugar or sugary type sweetened foods. There's added sugars, like I said, well, this is a lightly sweetened cereal, but there's added sugars in soups. Let's see, 4 grams of sugar. Now this might be some natural depending on the vegetables, but there's actually added sugars in soups, condiments, sauces, frozen foods, breads, and all kinds of what are savory type items. So you do need to be on the lookout. And again, it all adds up. It's a good idea to avoid anything with the word or derivative of agave, corn, cane, such as evaporated cane juice, cane sugar, sugar cane. You also want to avoid things with the word or words that contain OS, OSE, such as fructose, dextrose, maltose, sucrose, trehalose, glucose. And other things you want to avoid are things that have the word malt in the name, such as malt syrup, flow malt, and even some maltodextrin. Now, anything with the prefix of iso is something that you want to avoid, like isoglucose, isomaltulose, or items with the word syrup, like maple syrup. Some maple syrups can be healthy, but that's when it's pure maple syrup, not just plain old maple syrup in processed foods. Sorghum syrup, brown rice syrup, again, not healthier alternatives. And just because it says organic sugar, it's still sugar nonetheless. So the organic part doesn't make it less refined and doesn't necessarily make it a good choice. Even molasses or honey isn't so great unless it's raw and pure. So what are healthier added sugar options? Now, as long as the following, I'm going to mention a number of them, as long as these are consumed in moderation, they can be a healthier choice. Unsulfured molasses, fruit juice concentrate, organic palm sugar, date sugar, coconut sugar, organic maple syrup, raw honey. Again, in moderation. Now, for the calorie-free sweeteners that many are becoming increasingly aware are not healthy, the artificial sugar substitutes is a pretty popular name, are best to be avoided. And there's more than what you think. Besides the aspartame, saccharin, and sucralose, you have the excessulfame or excessulfame, potassium, and neotame. So there's a number of other artificial type sugar substitutes. And healthier choices of calorie-free sweeteners that also don't spike insulin, so these are going to be your better choices, are stevia, monk fruit, sometimes called lohan, and erythritol. Now, I do realize erythritol is a sugar alcohol, but for most, it does not trigger GI distress even in higher amounts, like in baked goods and so forth. The other sugar alcohols, like xylitol, can cause GI distress, but most of the time in the very small amounts, like in mints and gums, most people can tolerate that just fine. Now, calorie-free, regardless if it's a healthy or alternative, does not mean consume all you want. It can still cause or keep someone with an addiction to sweets. Now, I'm going to go through a list of other items to watch out for that are not so healthy, but I still cannot get through an exhaustive list. It's a very long list. Now, the point here is to really just start paying attention to the ingredient list. Of course, anything artificial, such as artificial flavorings or colorings, you want to avoid things like that, like caramel or food dyes. Even when it says natural flavorings, doesn't automatically mean healthy because of the word natural in it. Some of the things, again, it's a very long list. I'm going to go through a few items that you want to avoid are nitrates and nitrates. And I get this question, but there's those kind of things in natural foods. The natural food, those items in natural foods are fine. It's when the added nitrates and nitrites are added that are not healthy. You want to avoid sodium benzoate, potassium benzoate, anything benzoate type. Potassium bromate, preservatives. Also want to avoid phosphates and thiobromine, aluminum additives like sodium aluminum phosphate, sodium aluminum sulfate, Olestra, which is, I believe, that fat, having to do with the fat and not absorbing the fats, but not so healthy. Polysorbate 60, want to avoid that. You want to avoid a lot of the gums. Carrageenan is what you really want to avoid, but even some that have GI issues have troubles with xanthan gum and guar gum and other types of gums in food. So you want to be on the lookout for those, especially if you have GI issues, but carrageenan is really unhealthy for anyone. We talked about BPA, so you want to avoid that. You also want to avoid the MSG, right, monosodium glutamate. Now, the ingredient list will usually not indicate MSG. There are many ingredients that include MSG, and those hidden ingredients and hidden names are autolyzed yeast, hydrolyzed protein, hydrolyzed vegetable protein, sodium caseinate, yeast nutrient or yeast extract, natural flavoring, glutamic acid, and of course many foods it's hidden in is soy sauce, powdered milk, malt, maltodextrin, pectin, and other type of things. So you can see there's so much hidden in these ingredients, and the names are not necessarily indicative of what it might be. Another key thing is when you're looking for gluten-free, make sure the label says gluten-free, because the ingredient will not indicate gluten. And there's a lot of ingredient names that are hidden with, or gluten is hidden in. So just be really careful when it comes to gluten-free. I hope this video series will help you make healthier selections with processed foods. Most processed foods are what I call dead foods. They have little nutrients. They may taste good, but they have little nutrients, have harmful additives, and over time and consistent consumption, this aggravates and inflames the body, of course, leads to a cascade of other health problems. There's certainly healthier options, so if you do your homework, you can choose wisely. There's nothing wrong with having some of these healthier processed or packaged food options available when you need to grab something quick or have no time to make something. Now, when you're ready to start doing more food preparation at home or want some additional tips for it, I have a free resource at my website. My website is www.kellywillhite.com. And I have a cheat sheet there, a free cheat sheet that can help you with. I also have a really super 5-part article series on meal planning and batch cooking. It's really everything you need to know, the how-tos, the steps, and everything on meal planning and batch cooking. So take a look at that. If you have any questions and you would like some help, please reach out. I would love to hear from you. Until next time, God bless you and enjoy your day.